think, the second largest state in the country with this problem, and yet it can be solved easily while bringing crime down, making communities safer. I am here to represent the Reform Alliance. The Reform Alliance was founded by someone named Meek Mill. Working with someone named Mark Rubin. And a friend of his named Jay-Z. And a few other prominent people who said enough is enough. Enough is enough. And change has to come, and change has to start someplace. And what better time than now, and what better place than here? And so you're going to hear from a bipartisan set of leaders today who have a track record of winning. The Clean Slate bill that was passed last year, overwhelmingly, was led by some of these same legislators. They know how to fight, they know how to win, they know how to get justice. But they recognize that last year was just the first step. And now we're going to be taking another step forward for justice. After you hear from some of the legislators involved, you're going to hear from some business leaders. And then you're going to get a chance to hear from Meek Mill.
So we are here to announce.
Tell this fucking media, leave me the fuck alone.
We are here to announce a bipartisan about.
Yo, get out of here! Boy, wait till I get better. Wait till I get better. This fucking media. Fuck you. You know what's going on in this country.
Who invited him? Whose man's?
So I'm gonna start over. Alright, we're gonna start over.
Started from the top.
Alright.
Go ahead, Jordan.
As Van said, it's often highlighted in the media, the division between Democrats and Republicans, whether it's in Harrisburg or whether it's in DC. But I've been blessed to work with legislators on both sides of the aisle that get it when it comes to the issue of criminal justice reform. And we're here today to announce a bipartisan effort to reform our state's probation and parole laws. It will go under the banner of House Bill 1925 when it is introduced. It will be co-prime sponsored by my colleague, who you'll hear from, Representative Cheryl DeLozier, and myself, as well as Representative Ed Gainey, Mike Jones, and Greg Rothman. This bipartisan piece of legislation aims to change a system that for far too long has held many of our citizens back. For far too long, probation has been the quicksand of the criminal justice system. The moment you get in, it's hard to get out. And even as hard as you try to get out, it pulls you back in. The teamwork that we see here today is an example of what we can do in Harrisburg when we put our party affiliations aside and decide that it is time for us to address real issues that affect real Pennsylvanians. In 2016, Pennsylvania had more than 112,000 people on parole. Indiana is a state that is similar in size. While we had 112,000, they only had 30,000. In Philadelphia, there are more than 44,000 people on adult parole and probation. And as many of you know, in Pennsylvania, a technical violation is any type of interaction with the police department. Whether you did it or you didn't do it, a technical violation can end you back up in prison. And what does that mean? That means that a person who may have been late to a meeting, that means a person who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you're, in my opinion, a Philadelphian, particularly a black male living in Philadelphia, the wrong place and the wrong time can be anywhere where you are in the city of Philadelphia. And for those reasons and those reasons alone, you could find yourself ending up back in prison. That means you'll lose your job, that means you'll lose your home, and in many instances, you'll have to start back over again. That is not what the criminal justice system was made for. That is not what probation and parole was made for. And I'm just glad that the legislators that are here today understand and they get it. They understand that it's already hard enough when someone is released from prison. It's already hard enough when someone has an interaction with the police department and the court system for them to turn their life around. We need no more stumbling blocks to keep them from becoming gainfully employed. We don't need any more stumbling blocks to keep them from becoming educated. What we need is a way to reintegrate them back into our society, take them from tax burden to taxpayer. That's what we need in Pennsylvania.
And I'll tell you again, a year and a half ago, I thought that the system worked really well in 99.9% of the cases. I could not have been more wrong. I'll tell you, now, 15 months later, I realize the system is failing as much as it's succeeding. And to me, that's something that things happen for a reason. And you know what? When Meek got sent to prison in front of me, I guess that was just, and by the way, I think everybody by now knows this is a guy who got sent to prison for what? For popping a wheelie and for breaking up a fight where there were no charges in either situation. And he got sent to prison for 2 to 4 years for essentially doing nothing. I could do that 500 times and no one would say a thing to me. But Meek got sent to prison for 2 to 4 years. And you know what? To me, that was Meek's sacrifice. That was a great thing, because at the end of the day, we're going to turn that travesty into a real positive, and we're going to figure out how to fix the system. Now, I'll tell you something. There are so many great people that are focused on fixing the criminal justice system, but the part of the system that's the most broken is actually what Van talked about, is the probation and parole system. That's 2/3 of the people in the system, in the criminal justice system, are in it on probation and parole. 4.5 million Americans are on probation and parole. And what I never believed it, and Meek and I have had so many debates about this, I never believed that you could get sent to prison for not committing a crime. But so many people go to prison for not committing a crime. And Meek's gone to prison 3 times for not committing a crime. And that's the part of the system that we need to fix. By the way, there's lots of people that do belong going to prison. And you know what? I want to live in a safe community, and all of us want to live in a safe community. And you know what? I feel bad for that part of the environment that, you know, that ends up, that does bad things and has to be part of the system. But there are so many people that are in the system that should not be in the system, that go to prison and jail for not committing a crime. And that's what we're so focused on fixing. You know, the reality is, this problem, it's Meek who introduced me to this problem, but the problem is so much bigger than him. I originally thought this was about one bad judge, and that was it. And what I realized, again, is that the system that we need to fix. November 6th for me, November 6th, 2017, that was the moment being in that courtroom. That's a moment that I will remember for the rest of my life. Probably the moment that I remember more than any other moment. Watching a good friend of mine, a brother of mine, go to prison again for not committing a crime. And for us, I believe we're going to make a real positive from that. Now, I'll tell you, I think most people know I'm a business person, I'm an entrepreneur. Well, that's none of the reason that makes me want to fix this problem. I look at just right and wrong. We need to do right and wrong, and that's why we need to fix this problem. But there's also economics behind this. We're spending $200 million in Pennsylvania on probation and parole. I want to take that money and spend it in far better places. And by the way, there are many people that do need to be on probation and parole. But I bet you in Pennsylvania, we have 300,000 people on probation and parole. You can cut that number back by 1/3, by 50%. We'll keep the communities equally safe. And by the way, think about this. I want to have a great economy. The way to have a great economy is to have people that aren't on probation. As an employer, we're worried about those people getting fired because, or I'm sorry, not fired, we're worried about those people going back to prison for the smallest thing. We want those people being successful members of our workforce. So I think we have a giant opportunity in front of us. Again, I appreciate all of you being here. And with that, I want to introduce Meek Mill.
Like I said, it's a lot of laws and statutes that don't actually make sense for people that look like myself. One of them is if you're around a felon, you could be sent back to prison. Any felons in here right now? Basically, right now, you could be put in technical violation for just being around a felon. You could be in technical violation for not paying your fines and dues, showing up to your probation officer late. I was falsely accused of a crime in 2007. I did almost up to 3 years in prison. Skipped that. I actually got on in the music business, made a lot of money for myself, and overcame a lot of obstacles coming from the ghettos of Philadelphia. And I've been doing well myself. I'm still on bail. I'm on probation, and you know, Mike, he said he never heard of nobody getting 2 to 4 years for a technical violation. I'm around people that look like they've been experiencing this, though. They have a family member. That's just normal in our days of life where people lose their job, lose their home for not even committing crime. Police contact, you get, I don't know if you know what police contact is, you can actually get pulled over by a police officer and lose your freedom, go to jail for 2 to 4 years or whatever the rest of your probation term is. And you know, I'm just here to speak for the ones who don't have a voice, because I hate it had to be me to go to jail, a rapper or a public figure to go to jail for it become an issue, but it is an issue, and this is where we at. And I decided to use my time, my platform, and my energy to speak for people who don't have a voice. And you know, I could be sitting in jail. I could be sitting in jail doing a 2 to 4 year sentence, maybe playing ping pong or chess, but instead I'm hiring people. I'm giving back to my community. I'm making a lot of money. I'm paying my taxes. I'm taking care of my families. And probation, I grew up in Philadelphia, the early 90s, and late 80s, where, you know, a lot of our fathers were in prison. And, you know, I was actually one of the babies who grew up without a father in the house. And I think that's a big start on kids growing up with fathers in the house. And, you know, they're sending people to prison with police contact and the things I mentioned before. You know, I'm trying to get the cycle going of people having mothers and fathers in the house, and you shouldn't have technical violations being aware of that. My son's 7 years old. I was locked up when he was 6 years old, sentenced to 2 to 4 years in prison, where basically I could have spent 4 years in prison out of my son's life. And my son came to see me and asked me what I was arrested for. I had to tell him, popping a willie, and he could never understand it. And like Mike said, someone like yourself could pop willies 100 times, but beyond myself, I'm only here to use my platform and my voice to speak for the people who don't have a voice. It's a lot of young men actually locked behind the walls and stacked up with probation and trying to do well with themselves and move forward, but they can't because the odds are so great against them. So, you know, I just want to use my voice, and thank you for everybody that's here supporting. Thank you.